Hello, my name is Ahmed Habib. I'm a representative of Big A Productions, and this is my factual film idea, the Trump-Fox feedback loop and the journalistic credibility at risk. Spurred by President Trump's unconventional style, controversial statements, and tenuous relationship with the media, I have decided to cover the relationship between him and Fox News, with both parties being involved in political attacks echoed by one another. Several correlations between the information given out by Fox News and then the president tweeting or making physical statements with the same information. Is there a change of the idea of how an administration governs and how the media should be covering these stories? The format. Splitting the 10 minutes given to me by the brief by Channel 4, I aim to divide the film into quarters. The first quarter, an introduction into the current most state of the administration and a recap of Trump's action during his campaign, leading up to the most current state of events. The news is 24/7, so my final sort of script may change depending on the outcomes in the next 2-3 weeks. So there's always sort of update. It's 24/7, so anything can change really. The second quarter, I'm going to be focusing on his relationship with Fox News, starting from the campaign when Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox, as it is their relationship, sort of billionaire sort of relationship, and how that came to fruition during the campaign, and how Rupert Murdoch reacted to this after he lost a following of Fox News as they were berating Trump, and now they seem to be in cahoots as Trump features quite regularly on their show, and also the sort of view has changed from a liberal perspective to going on to the more right Republican side of the government. For the second quarter, I'll be showing the inconsistency of accuracy with the different statements made by Trump, his administration, and Fox News. Also focusing on how this can affect journalism as a whole. The third quarter, I'll be focusing on my contributors' interview into the segment, and they'll be focusing on the journalistic opinion of how this affects showing news on the administration itself. For the fourth quarter, I want to be concluding all the facts and the possible outcomes in the future with President Trump being indicted. That could also be a possibility in the future. The genre. The genre is, it doesn't fall along one sort of genre in terms of documentaries. It's a combination of modes. The factual film fits into more than one type of genre. Expository documentary features an omnipresent, omniscient one, or objective presence, typically expressed as narration to organize and present the content. Observational, which attempts to provide a faithful record of some activity, also sort of fly on the wall, a sort of third person sort of observation. Also including an interview, this will attempt to get some sort of record. I've just realised there's a mistake on that. I'll move on. The contributors. I have contacted several broadsheet newspapers hoping to get an interview through them. During phone calls, they seem quite enthusiastic about it. They get loads of offers for interviews for final major projects with universities, and I'm quite excited myself. I'm completely fine with going into London and recording an interview, and I would like to get the 3 up here, preferably the Times, because I do read them and I like their sort of opinion on matters in the country. Target audience. These are the main sort of targets I'm hitting in terms of mosaic mapping. Liberal opinions are young, professional, well-educated, cosmopolitan in their tastes, liberal in their views, who enjoy the vibrancy and diversity of inner city living. Terrace melting pot. People work in relatively menial, routine occupations and are poorly educated in some parts. When it comes to my documentary, I want to keep it quite fast-paced. I feel the problem with the news is that it's in terms of England, it can be quite boring because it's not as entertaining as what's happening in America. I think with the stories that I will be providing in the actual factual film and the pace, it will be quite exciting for this group. Industrial heritage people are traditional and conservative, living in communities that historically have been dependent on mines, mills, assembly plants for their livelihood. One of the points that Trump made during his campaign was that he was going to save the mining industry and those old types of industries that have been set out by baby boomers, and was used as a sort of a voting base so that he could basically get their views. I think including this into my target market will show a sort of perspective of a differing opinion, because I know a lot of older people over here did agree with his views on saving the coal mining industry, but again, it's an industry that isn't really needed at the moment and something that we need to evolve from. Suburban mindsets are also mostly married people of middle age living together with their children and in family houses. For my social target class, I've tried to aim for people over 16 plus, because I believe young people do need to be more involved in knowing what's happening politically, and I think this is a good sort of starting point in terms of focusing in America. A lot of our media is American based, so I think if we can sort of focus politically on what's happening over there, it'll give us more enthusiasm to figure out what's happening with our own government, because I don't feel like people around me, people of the same age, do take that as a sort of, take it as importance for their living. I know when they're probably like twice their own age, they're probably going to figure out that it was important, but they're not as bothered. Intended aim. Covering several stories from a British point of view, my intended aims to cover include giving attention to the specifics of the unjust handling of the media by the Trump administration. Have the main voters of his campaign only listen to what the president had to say and not the media who are covering the facts rather than biased opinion. How a mainstream news channel is in cahoots with the president to only benefit himself, and major factual scrutiny around the administration. A warning of how this can affect our own politics in the near future, and the fact that we need to pay more attention to the happenings of our government. It's been brewing in America that there's going to be a change, democratic sort of, after Obama's 8 years, there's been a sort of unheard voting population that felt like none of their demands and needs were being met by the administration, and that's one of the reasons Trump was voted in. I think that could happen to us because obviously America is one of our biggest allies, and there could be a voting population that could just be sick of what's happening in the government. And also I think our version right now is Theresa May, but a very low sort of, not as much in terms of popularity, but she's sort of going around the same sort of views that Trump is, but not trying to get as much scrutiny as he does. I just want a sort of younger sort of target in terms of audience, so that there is a sort of importance to them regarding the media. For my budget, I don't really need much. A lot of my edit will be B-roll. and that's mainly consisting of speeches from Trump, CNN, and major media outlets from America. I will be needing equipment just for a short interview that I will get with a contributor. The total is $1,277 for just basic equipment for filming and then editing at the end. And that is my presentation.
Okay, thank you
Any
very much.
questions, please?
So you've contacted all of those newspapers,
Yeah.
and have you heard back? Like, where are you kind of at with that?
The main ones, the main three, The Guardian, The Times, and I can't remember the last one, I did call. They said that they have to wait for specific journalists. Most likely it's going to be the ones that don't get featured as much, but I am basically just looking for a journalist from one of those, so I'm sure they will have someone. It's just a matter of calling them back every few days, and I think over half term I will have a confirmation.
Okay, because one of the things I noticed about your list, it's all like broadsheets.
The Metro I included, they aren't a broadsheet, but it's a lower tier, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they were quite enthusiastic about it themselves. They told me to call them tomorrow to see if there's an update. It's most likely just going to be a reminder that I need someone to interview.
Can I ask why you've just contacted newspapers? Because obviously the whole idea of the documentary is Fox News.
I understand. The difference is in America, there are a lot of outlets. In England, we just have BBC and ITV, which are more like government run. I wanted newspapers because they're like the most, that in terms of the foundation of news, I think it affects them the most. So I thought in terms of an opinion, I trusted theirs rather than the BBC or ITV.
Which means BBC's government run.
Yeah. So
you've got ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, which are not.
In terms of TV, I thought it was. I thought there was more of a probability of getting an interview from the newspapers rather than TV outlets. But
I don't think you should rule it out though.
I will
try.
take that as a consideration, and I will contact ITV, the main ones.
Yeah, it might be an idea looking at.
Because I do like Channel 4 in terms of the news. I'll take that as a consideration, and I will contact them.
I was just going to say, rather than contacting the company, maybe look at journalist names, because a lot of them are freelance.
Yeah, a lot of them when they are featured online, you see their name as the first thing right below the title. So I will do that if I have. I'm going to look through stories too, because I mainly look at in terms of this topic. I only watch American news. So there's not many people here who are focusing on it as much. That's where I'm getting my information from. But in terms of the opinion, I will contact those. And
it might be a big ask, but is it possible to contact some American reporters and conduct Skype interviews?
I mean, there are loads of American reporters, so I will look at that too.
I just think because at the moment you said the majority of your edit is going to be B-roll and like pre-recorded stock footage from speeches, all that kind of stuff. I just think it's going to be lacking in kind of original content. Like, what are you actually going to have to?
I forgot to say, there will be a narration over it too, so I will be casting to narrate. But that's a lot easier than getting an actual interview.
But not in a replay, but obviously without the interviews, the voiceover is going to be your opinion, isn't it?
No, it's not opinion, it's just straight facts.
So from your research?
Yeah, so I'm basically fact-checking everything that's happened between Fox and Trump.
Could I just ask, you spoke about, in one of the courses, I think it's the second or third one, you said about looking at the impact that this has had on journalism.
Yeah.
I would assume you mean the journalism culture in the US, not the UK.
No, it can affect both ways because it's I'm going to say this because I believe in terms of history, America is a product of England. I think I think so.
Ideologies are built to be different. They try to be completely
Yeah.
different in the UK.
But then again, when you've got like two continents complaining about who's speaking English and who's speaking Spanish, I think those are both European languages. So I think it definitely affects us in a
Just
lot
be
of ways. We
careful
do.
putting that. If you are talking about fact checking
Yeah,
and things and
yeah.
not putting your opinion in careful comments like that.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's my own opinion, and that's why I said these are just straight facts. I'm trying to make this as I'm not trying to make this biased at all. It's all facts.
What impact do you think it has on the culture then of journalism?
Well,
What are you?
first of all, Trump says one thing, the administration says another, and then Fox says something that correlates with them, and then you have several other media outlets, ABC, NBC, CNN, having to fact check those. Fox News, they have nearly three reporters, but they don't call themselves journalists. They have their own hourly segments, and they're just giving you opinion but disguising it as fact. That's one of the things that I'm going to be focusing on. But it's kind of...
So fake news, basically.
It's basically that, but Trump doesn't call them fake news. He calls CNN, NBC, ABC, the people who are fact-checking them, and they've got all the evidence behind it, and a lot of the senators that actually work for the government support them. But yeah, Trump's calling them fake news, and Fox, who basically correlate in terms of opinion, he doesn't call them fake news.
But that I get that, and obviously the Trump situation isn't standalone, is it? With Fox News, they did it with 9/11 and everything. But what are you suggesting what impact that has on UK journalism?
No,
That's the
I'm
point
saying that if these people who are watching Fox News are only taking their what they're saying as fact, then how else are they meant to get the news? If they only trust Fox and no one else, how is that good for a government and the future in terms of...
Listen to the
who's
question
gonna be running?
carefully.
Yeah, that doesn't-
Why is Britain being affected
No,
by Fox?
I mean, I'm
News
getting a
feeds?
journalistic opinion, but it's not really. It's just a general journalistic opinion. That's what I'm trying to get.
Then that's cool. Just don't put in that you're
No.
looking at the climate or the environment journalism in the UK, because journalism laws in the US,
No.
journalism laws are completely different.
Yeah.
So, yes, get the opinion of the profession,
Yeah.
but not on the climate, the culture, the environment. They're very different things.
Yeah.
Like, how many people in the UK watch Fox News?
None. I'm just trying to get British people to actually know what's going on in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said 16. You didn't put a cap on your age range, like 16 to...
No, it's a 16 plus.
16 plus.
Yeah.
So right the way through. Do you
Yeah.
think 16 is a little bit young?
No, I mean, a lot of people, I'd say myself that when it gets to 16, you're going to college, in terms of education, you're going more specific into a region of what you want to go into. So it depends on whether you're at sixth form doing politics.
No,
or
I understand
something
that,
like
but
I
kind
understand
of...
the presentation styles would have to be different for a 16-year-old to a 60-year-old.
Um,
How are you going to
yeah,
make it catchy
yeah,
enough for the younger?
that's why I said I'm trying to go for a fast-paced sort of.
But then are you too
factual
fast for the
film.
older audiences?
No. I mean, a lot of people don't really care, even in terms of all ages. So if you're making it quite impactful for all ages.
Yeah, but I think if you're going to make this type of thing for a 16-year-old, there would be loads of graphics, really bright colours, fast editing. But then I would say a 60-year-old isn't going to want to watch loads of graphics, fast-paced editing.
I mean, it's,
Maybe
it's,
the
it's
Fox
gonna
News
be,
story
I think
pick
visually, to have a 16 age bracket and a 60...
a lot of B-roll is coming from the news, so it's not. I wouldn't.
And how many
call it.
16-year-olds are tuning into the news?
I mean, you don't actually know that for sure.
You could,
I'd say.
you could go on Barb and get
But
the viewing
I-
figures for.
I mean, then again, if you're watching a factual film, you're gonna stay there and at least watch it throughout. So I think some
Not
of
necessarily.
the facts that you will see in there will resonate with them and stick with them, I'd say.
Yeah, that's if they make it to that point. My thinking is that a 16-year-old is going to see your title, which is quite wordy, quite a mouthful. They're going to see that, instantly switch over.
Right. I think it just depends on the person. I can't say generally.
I think it does depend on the person, but what I think you need to do is to make a product for a more specific target group.
Right, okay.
I think at the moment it's too big to say that you're going to target 16 and plus. 16 to 100 is far too big.
It's nice if any age range watches it, but who are you targeting?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
consider
Who's the backup?
Because
would
you're-
you consider 18 to 40 as more of a specific
Even
range?
18 to 30, I would
Yeah.
say.
I think so.
I think so, because
Okay.
when you went through
As a
your...
primary audience.
And then
Yeah, absolutely. You can have a
absolutely fine for
secondary and a
secondary.
tertiary audience onto that, but I think you were so specific with your mosaic group profiling, and you were really clear about what those categories were,
Mhm.
but then what are the age ranges of those categories? Like, no one in those categories would have been 16.
Mhm.
Do you see what I mean? So I think you just need to be a bit clear about who you're targeting, because you're going to end up with a confused end product.
Okay.
But you've got a good idea. You just
Yeah.
need to make sure you're targeting it properly.
I get that.
Yeah.
I just think you need to bear in mind objectivity, because you're really passionate about the topic, and it was like the previous speaker. It was really nice to see someone start that's really
No, I
enthusiastic.
understand that. It's just getting it clear. But yeah, it's just confirming what stories I'm going to use exactly, because there's so much that I could use.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to pick the more sillier ones, then yes, I think you are going to be able to hold the attention of a 16, 17,
I think the
18-year-old.
silliest thing that I'm probably going to mention in there, and I think will be one of the things that will stick, is his controversy with the porn star. So
Do you see what I mean?
think-
But then
yeah.
that's not appropriate then for a 16-year-old.
Yeah, so I think 18 to 30 would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then then you know in your head exactly what you're trying to kind of, and who you're trying to sell your product to.
But objectivity and impartiality are key, considering you're talking about political leader,
Yeah.
a massive
Yeah.
media outlet, and it's can't just be your opinion.
No,
Even if
no,
you've got facts and
no,
they
no,
do
I-
this,
yeah,
you have to
that's-
give them the right
yeah.
to speak as
Yeah,
well.
that's fine. In terms of opinion, I was just voicing my own sort of opinion of trying to get news a bit more important to people around.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. But in terms of the actual film, I'm just trying to keep it straight facts.
Yeah, because remember, bias can occur at
No,
every single
no,
stage of your documentary.
Like, I think as well, if you are going for that target audience, screenshot some of his tweets, screenshot some of the things that he
Well,
said. I think we need to see
one of the
those things and
thing-
how he's been using social media as
one
well.
of the things that I want to make clear in because I watch CNN, they're liberals, so that's just the sort of outlet that I take to the most. They've had to sort of change the way they interview the right wing, so they have to make it seem like they're being fair and impartial rather than just stopping them every time they say something out of turn. And that's because
Yeah.
Trump takes that and then uses that against them for people not to watch their show. So that's like one of the
It's the
things
same.
that
I was literally reading an article at lunchtime about how now Trump is now not allowed to block anyone on Twitter
Mhm.
because it goes against Americans' constitutional rights about freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So all these people who have been making comments and he's been blocking and deleting them,
And that like goes
he's
against
legally
what it
now
says
not
about
allowed
fake
to.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think once you
I
include
don't
that
know.
Twitter element,
Just so you
social
know.
media element, that's when young people will be interested. Yeah.
What camera are you using?
Mark II,
Like to what?
Canon,
Canon what?
Canon Mark II.
Canon 7D Mark II.
Oh,
Everyone's
yeah.
doing it, don't worry. Right now,
It's
7D.
you know it says that on the price tag.
7D is more important than Mark II. That could be a 5D Mark II.
It says
So
it on the mark.
7D.
It says it on the price tag.
Doesn't say that doesn't mean anything to anyone. You're walking in saying, "I have a Heinz, please." What do you want? Ketchup or soup? You know,
Mhm.
tell them what you. Is that definitely the last slide? Because usually you haven't had a slideshow and you haven't given us a contingency slide.
They-
No, I don't
they didn't have to, I
know.
wasn't
It's not
specific
working. I
about.
think.
And time.
In
Well,
terms of contingency, I mean, I had a contingency in terms of if you guys didn't like the story, I was in terms of story, I was gonna go for in Kazakhstan. There's like a tradition of kidnapping women, and if you get kidnapped, legally, you have to marry the person. So
What, that you get kidnapped by?
yeah. So they literally just pick a woman,
People are
a guy
interested
will
about that
pick
than
her up,
another story about
shove
that.
her into a car, and
Now that's your wife.
yeah.
That is so
Wow.
bizarre.
That's very bizarre, but also very Channel 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been.
Yeah.
But contingency wise, okay, all of the newspapers come back, so no, we don't have time for an interview.
Herald and Post.
Every single, you don't get an interviewer in time and you've got to start editing. What do you do? Just your voiceover?
In terms of a narrator, or you mean a contributor?
Contributors.
Oh, contributor, and it gets to editing.
You're running out of time, and those newspapers that you targeted.
When it comes to that, it's a lot easier just to get an interview from a university professor, and that's usually a lot easier than having to wait for bullshit newspapers. And if I don't get that, then that would be most likely just a narration.
What university?
It's going to be most likely a London one. If not, I'm going to be contacting Bedfordshire also as a contingency to that. Most likely politics. Yeah.
I think in terms of your grading and going over your grading profile, knowing what you need for this unit is going to be key for you getting a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
It really
Yeah,
is.
that.
Like I said earlier about original content, it's not going to be sufficient enough to just have B-roll and a voiceover. So please better than that one, just for grading
I'm
purposes.
taking my first unit as basically how I did that.
I was going to mention that in that you managed to, for the very first project on the course, you managed to source some amazing contributors and you've kind of set your own bar for what you need to achieve this time round.
It'd be good to try and get an interview with a journalist, but also like maybe the editor-in-chief or something, because ultimately the journalist has to do what the editor says. So where that ethical line gets really blurred, because the journalist has to, the news values depend on the editor. So that might be quite cool to look at.
And were you guys okay with my format splitting it into quarters?
Yeah. One of my questions was, is you got too much for 10 minutes?
Okay, yeah. There's just a base, so I have something to like work by as I'm getting B-roll.
I think now we've kind of said about removing that influence on the profession or whatever. That would ease up loads of time anyway. So
if you end up overrunning by quite a lot, you can take a whole quarter out.
Yeah, completely.
Because you've segregated.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then just to finish, so obviously the Channel 4 criteria are looking for a kind of an emotional response from the film. Where's the emotion going to be coming from?
I think it's going to be coming from the lies that are being told and how the differing sort of outlets can really confuse a lot of people, and hopefully by the facts that I do tell, that's where I get the emotional response from. But of course, I'm not expecting an emotional response from everybody. I'm just some people.
Because I think it's kind of, yours would be quite nice to stage a small scene where someone reads something that he said, and they go and tell someone else, and then they go and tell someone else, and then actually it comes out that it was not true. And then you've got this one person who's like gone around telling all these people this kind of piece of news. So again, you could consider a really small staged section, maybe.
Good. Well done.
Anything else? Very, very well done.
Okay. Thank you.